Hey everybody, hope everybody is doing well. I wanted to address this propagandist article by CNN Business. And I just have to tell you, CNN is probably the largest propagandist tool in American media. It is in fact the elephant in the room. It is because of this network that so many of the problems of America and the world exist today. This is why I believe that the media is the #1 enemy of the American people, including several YouTube channels, not the banks, not necessarily large corporations, it's the American media. And they're spewing out multicultural, anti-white mass immigration propaganda, telling that, well, the average American citizen, along with our government, that we need to increase immigration levels. And remember, you have to understand who is promoting this bullcrap. The media really cares about their advertisers. And their advertisers are basically corporations that benefit from massive immigration. Whether it's cheap labor, more business for developers, banks, lawyers, and so forth, that's how it is. But remember, what's really good for business, and this is where some people on the right, particularly libertarians, disagree with me, is not necessarily good for society. And that's what a lot of people need to understand. This is why all economic systems, capitalism, socialism, communism, are heavily flawed. But despite that, I would still prefer capitalism over socialism. So as you can see here, they're telling the American people that, oh, well, Trump's immigration plan is terrible. You know, he wants to reduce immigration levels. He wants to secure the border. So ladies and gentlemen, we have to open the borders. We have to let these caravan people, these asylum seekers, all of them come in, basically flood our country like cockroaches, and basically breed like rabbits to flood our public schools because we have a birth crisis in America. And if trends continue, more people are going to die than actually get born. Folks, here is the problem. The problem is not the fact that immigration levels are low. The problem is that Americans, particularly white Americans, are not having enough children. And we have a lot of other illnesses like opioids, stress, a lot of prescription drugs that are killing particularly Americans who are European descent. That's the problem. The other problem, of course, is that the birth rate, particularly for white Americans, is too low. Now, we need to understand why these numbers are the way they are. So let's just go down the article. America's population is aging, and millennials are having fewer kids than older generations did. That is a risk to the U.S. economy not receiving much attention as concerns about interest rates, trade war, and corporate earnings. Now let's take a look at this paragraph. So again, this again is all about corporate earnings. Who gives a crap about corporate earnings as the first priority about what's happening to this country? I care about the average American. Now, of course, it's true that people should be over profits. This is where the left gets it right. But where they're getting it wrong is that they're benefiting the large corporations by flooding the country with massive immigration. This, along with their social justice warrior clap, their anti-family stance, makes sure that the Democrat Party and the left has been hijacked, especially here in Las Vegas. The longer risks slowing population growth presents economic challenges, say Kelly, the strategist with J.P. Morgan. Oh my gosh. So you see who's behind all this? The large 6 mega banks. These are the corporations, which, by the way, gave very little corporate contributions to President Trump. They are the ones who are promoting and pumping this immigration. Remember, it's Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, that wants this baloney. So they are benefiting from this global system. And he is concerned that policymakers are not addressing the issues, especially if Trump proposes a merit-based immigration. So America should not have the right to have a very efficient filter system to make sure that when people come in, American lives are not in jeopardy. that these immigrants don't go on welfare, they speak English, they have skills that we need, and a higher chance that American citizens can come first so that our cities don't get overcrowded. But oh no, all that matters is GDP growth and all this load of nonsense, which, it's nonsense as to prove as if the GDP is the most important factor in the economy. Now, I will tell you this. I'm not an economist. I am not someone with a degree, but I will tell you it's common sense to know the most important thing about the economy is how the average person, the typical American citizen, is doing. And the fact is we have had all this immigration for the last 50 darn years, and things for the average American has actually gotten worse, the standard of living. But again, they don't want to tell you that. They're propagandist tools. Kelly said that the combination of retiring boomers and a shortage of working-age Americans create the problem that's pretty awkward for the economy. Wait a second, isn't shortage good for Americans? Don't we need a shortage of workers so that wages go up? I bet you this article is hardly ever going to talk about wages. We need wages to go up, and the way you do that is you have less demand per job. That's how it works. This is one of the reasons why wages went up so much after World War II until the early 1970s. Again, they're not using charts and data to figure this out. And that's why Kelly advises that in the United States should probably be having serious conversations about boosting rather than reducing. So basically, we have to bring in these third world, low IQ populations who basically don't share our values. People who are not going to assimilate, people who could be part of a gang member, people who are disproportionately going to go on welfare, which means higher taxes. This is what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, of course, it's the less developed countries that we're going to have to bring in the immigration, because all the developed countries like Britain, Germany, whether it is Japan, a lot of these countries, well, they're having problems of their own. So as you can see here, Kelly noted that the numerous other issues that the United States will have to contend because of these demographic changes. And the government should reduce trade barriers and the level of dollar. Oh, wow. So they actually want to hurt the U.S. economy. They want your jobs to be outsourced, which makes the job market worse, so that U.S. businesses can access markets overseas easier. So this is what they do. They tell you that GDP and economic growth is the most important thing, but to hell with the average worker. Isn't that very shameful? Shame on CNN. It's no wonder why America is the way they are and the way things have been falling so badly in the last several decades. Investors in the United States need to prepare for earnings growth to slow, bond yields to keep falling, and returns in general to be lower. Now, first of all, American corporations, when they have their earnings are not necessarily based in America. You see, since the last economic downturn that we had about 10 years ago, earnings for American corporations have been going up. But nevertheless, the GDP of America has been kind of sluggish. So what the hell is going on? The fact is that large corporations that are based in the United States, their earnings are based at a global level. The U.S. is the leading economy, and these global corporations that are many of them based in the U.S., their earnings are based on selling, producing, and buying products at the global level. That's how it is. So this paragraph is so misleading. Now let's go down. Home building and auto sales will not be the boom industries. So what? So what? Why the hell do we need more cars and homes? More pollution? More environmental degradation? I find it such a disgusting thing how people who are pro-mass immigration are pro-environment. Considering the fact that places like Las Vegas had lots of home building as a result of directly or indirectly of massive immigration, particularly due to white flight, people moving to Henderson, Summerlin, Centennial, because when their communities and their demographics change. And then people have to have longer commutes, so they need cars to get around. And that is a lot of environmental degradation. And so what home builders are going to get hurt? How about they build more homes to address the housing shortage in America? So this just proves that we need less immigration to increase the supply of homes, so then that way that there's going to be more supply, a glut, so that prices begin to fall. Simple supply and demand economics, ladies and gentlemen. But you have this organization, CNN, which is totally propagandist, and they keep telling you, oh, well, we need more and more immigrants to boost our GDP. Well, look, we should build homes if it's going to serve American citizens, if it's going to benefit the American people. And we should plan our cities more efficiently by not implementing smart growth strategies or by implementing car-dependent sprawl strategies. And I suggest you look at my previous and future videos about Cyrus planning, about how to design cities and buildings. But anyway, that's a totally different topic. So this is done so that population growth slows down and we can do things more carefully and more efficiently. And that way we don't see areas like the Bay Area experience massive price swings in America. And again, this is one of the reasons why, of course, California loves massive immigration, because it fuels more demand. And the same thing with here in Las Vegas. It fuels more demand for homes. Corporations become more powerful. It looks good among politicians to say, oh, well, our populations are growing, our GDP is growing, vote for us the next election. And then, of course, when there's housing scarcity, why do you think politicians like higher home prices, along with a lot of the building restrictions that they have in California? Because property tax revenue goes up. And by the way, I believe that they're going to try to repeal Proposition 13 in California. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. If that happens, by the way, there's going to be a lot of people leaving the state. But they love higher home prices because it creates scarcity of homes, raises taxes, and they also get the votes and the tax revenue that they need. You have to understand how this corruption system works. It is a very, very large, complex problem. Now let's go. Now you can see here, artificial intelligence and robotics. So wait a second. So they just admitted that robotics is going to have a significant impact on the labor force. So why the hell do we need illegals to build these cheap quality homes? So basically what they're saying is they're contradicting themselves. You have to see how insane these articles are. I don't believe this. This is so unbelievable, folks. I cannot believe why people are taking this article so seriously. But then again, you have to understand that CNN ratings are plunging. People are waking up. And as a matter of fact, when I was in the CNN Center in Atlanta, and I'll show you a video about that pretty soon, I didn't even bother to pay a lot of money for the tour because I don't want to support these media outlets, although the interior was pretty nice. And by the way, when I was in the CNN Center, I did see Trump speak about the merit immigration speech that you'll see on your top right corner, and I actually applause to him, and I was the only person that did that. So as you can see, you can scroll down that strong U.S. growth, because again, economic growth is not the important issue. And we need to improve our demographic challenge. Let me explain to you something, ladies and gentlemen. The fact is that the problem is not that we need mainly more immigration. We need the birth rates of particularly white Americans to go up. Now, you have to ask yourself, why are the birth rates too low? Well, number one, you have very high cost of living. Now, if you look at the states that have the highest birth rates in the U.S., Utah, Nebraska, Kansas, the Dakotas, they have high birth rates. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that cost of living is lower. But another thing, speaking about Utah, is that America has lost its religious influence. Okay, there's fewer Americans per capita that are going to church. And this is very, very troubling. And this is very troubling to me because, I don't see a lot of young people who go to church if I visit that institution. So this is one of the things you have to understand. Now, another reason is because, of course, in the 60s and 70s, we saw the emergence of not only feminism, but male destruction. So you can see here that women are more focused on perhaps going to careers and going to school, spending much of their 20s basically studying, getting good grades, getting a job, which is their prime years. Or they spend much of their 20s, working as bartenders or perhaps, going to clubs and sleeping with a number of men and all that. And, that's not really helping with the birth rate. And even though they may have kids, a lot of these children are born out of wedlock. Not to mention you have the welfare state, you have the family court system, which discourages families to be formed so a woman can take a half of a man's earnings and wealth. There's a lot of these factors. Healthcare costs are going up, housing costs are going up, a lot of different factors. Childcare, you name it. Okay, and of course, the education system is certainly not helping, especially when you have an inflow of immigrants, particularly anchor babies, who are robbing your schooling system. And this is certainly a problem that we have here in Las Vegas. This is one of the reasons. By the way, the white birth rates, last time I checked here in Las Vegas, or actually the total birth rate in Nevada, is actually less than the national average. I'm going to actually take the look at the chart right here, and let's go and search. Let's see here. Birth rate by state. And you can see here it's about 1.8 per woman. I believe for white Americans is about 1.7. Now this you can see right here. The states that have very high birth rates, again, are the plain states, along with Idaho. I believe this is from 2013, so that can be kind of misleading. But you can see here, now, then again, you can also argue that these states, there's not much to do there, so basically the only thing you can do is just to screw around. Excuse me, I have a fever right now because in Las Vegas we kind of had like kind of a cool down wave, and this dry air gives me a lot of fever. And so let's take a look at the total fertility rate. You can see here Utah is the highest, South Dakota. And then you scroll down and you can see here the bottom is Rhode Island, Massachusetts. So you can see here this is where you have a lot of white liberals, Colorado, Oregon. Now California is pretty low. California had a huge decline. A lot of that has to do with the cost of living. But another problem, I think it's because a lot of those illegal immigrants are not having the anchor babies anymore. But it's still a problem because they're dominating the births in our hospitals. Nevada was really high at 2.42, and now that it's at 1.77. So this is a very, very concerning situation. But another problem, of course, and I don't want to blame all on women and feminism, but you have to understand that when you have a lot of men, unlike me, who are either emasculated soy boys and sit there and play video games, or have turned into gangsters and players like they want to be rap stars, that's not helping the birth rate issue either. And you also have to keep in mind that dating apps like Tinder and Bumble, as well as Match.com and a lot of these other services aren't helping, as a matter of fact. I think that's the case as well, because I think that certainly has had an impact. It certainly has given a lot of people in the dating market to be more picky, so they focus more on looks rather than focusing on quality. But I was at the American Renaissance Conference, ladies and gentlemen. I told a lot of people that if you want to increase the birth rates, you're going to have to encourage more young white males and women to have a different mindset. More white women that got to refuse to go to a four-year institution. And it's not helping them. A lot of them are going into debt, disproportionate numbers of them. Think about it. Women's lives have not really improved that much in the last 50, 60 years. A lot of people can argue that it's actually gotten worse in the U.S. And by the way, look at this. Minnesota's birth rate is pretty low. The sad part is, though, that I think that number would have been much lower if you didn't include the Somali refugees. But this is very, very disappointing, ladies and gentlemen. You have to keep this in mind. So we need more children, particularly of European descent. You need to get out there, because those of you who are following American Renaissance, Red Ice, James Alsop, Red Elephants, many of which I have interviewed just now, you need to recruit an army to have more white children. This makes sure that we have a lesser excuse to import more third world populations. All right? You have to change the mindset. Now, unfortunately, there's not much I can do personally. I mean, I can't really have really white children. Even if I do marry a white woman, the child is not going to look really European. As a matter of fact, I actually do better in the dating game with Hispanic women. In fact, I actually find them more attractive than white women. And believe it or not, I actually banged a Hispanic woman exactly 24 hours ago. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much. Take care. Have fun. Spread this video and stop the propaganda.